Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're gonna quickly say thank you to MasterCard, the City Possible team, Smart City Expo World Congress, and of course all the panelists. Today we're gonna be talking about building a citizen-centric community. We have an amazing group of folks who are gonna help us talk about that today. But before I get started, I'm gonna tell you who I am. So my name is George Burciaga with Ignite Cities. We have the pleasure of working with a number of mayors and deputy mayors and CIOs across the United States. So we're excited to be here. We're excited to be a partner of MasterCard. And I'm going to go around and have everyone introduce themselves. And then after that, we're going to dive into the conversation.
Hello, so good morning. My name is Raquel Cardamone. I'm from Bright Cities, a platform that consolidates data from cities worldwide. And here we are with the case of Juazeiro do Norte.
Hello, good morning. My name is Michel Araújo, Municipality Secretary of Development, Economic and Innovation of Juazeiro do Norte.
I'm Paula Pollmeyer. I worked a long time for the Medellin government for the Innovation Center Ruta N, and I'm mainly working in citizen participation strategies, smart city strategies with governments.
Good morning, I'm Scott Eddington, CEO of Deep Labs, a San Francisco-based artificial intelligence company.
Morning, everybody. My name is Miguel Santla. I'm the Deputy Mayor for the City of Los Angeles. I run budget and innovation.
Morning, my name is Sapan Shah. I work for MasterCard, part of the Global Cities team based in London.
So you can see we have a really interesting panel. I think everybody here would agree that the heartbeat of every city are the people that live there. So today, while we discuss building a citizen-centric community in cities all around the world, we're really going to dive into that heartbeat, really focusing on people. When we start to build ideas or resolve issues or focus on city priorities, they always have to lean on the people that live there, right? So let's just go around real quick. I know you had a quick statement you wanted to read about your city.
Okay. Juazeiro do Norte is a tourist city of northwestern Brazil with a population of 275,000 inhabitants. It's a citizen-centered city. We are getting a lot of attention in Brazil because we are innovative and we approved the first innovation law with master plan for smart cities technology in the country, with the support of the Mayor, Arnon Bezerra, and the City Council. We have also been innovative in finding technological solutions to optimize public management and break government silos. Our main objective is to improve people's quality of life, and we ensure that technology really benefits the citizen. In the city of Juazeiro do Norte, we reinforce our smart city plan by diagnosing the city with the help of the Bright Cities platform, which analyzed more than 160 city indicators and identify which areas need improvement.
Yeah.
No.
I think it's better not working.
Hello?
Aí, melhor.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Repeat.
Yeah. You're good.
Juazeiro do Norte is a tourist city of northwestern Brazil with a population of 275,000 inhabitants. It's a citizen-centered city. We are getting a lot of attention in Brazil because we were innovative and we approved the first innovative law with master plan for smart cities technology in the country, with the support of the Mayor, Arnon Bezerra, and the City Council. We have also been innovative in finding technological solutions to optimize public management and break government silos. Our main objective is to improve people's quality of life, and we ensure that technology really benefits the citizens. In the city of Juazeiro do Norte, we reinforce our smart city plan by diagnosing the city with the help of the Bright Cities platform, which analyzed more than 160 60 seat indicators and identify which areas need improvement. After this diagnosis, it was developed a roadmap of technological solutions that can help the city to improve public service. Several initiatives are currently underway, but we can highlight the city app that will consolidate all services offered to citizens is in one place, and the innovative plan to use, for example, a MasterCard card for citizens to pay seat tax and public transportation.
Perfect. I'll take the microphone. So, with that said, thank you for that. Thank you for it. Let's talk about things that are actually going on based on, issues cities are dealing with. Deputy Mayor, I know that in Los Angeles you lead with technology frequently on just about everything you do. Do you want to talk a little bit about the city of Los Angeles and some of your top priorities where you're using technology to kind of make a big impact or change?
Hello. Yeah, so for Los Angeles, we've, as George just said, we use a lot of technology to amplify, the quality of life for our residents. And I think, a couple examples right now that come to mind. Well, first and foremost, pretty sure that everybody knows that Los Angeles is earthquake area, very much anywhere along the East Coast, right? The West Coast. We have the possibility of earthquakes, and it's one of those things that Angelenos constantly live with over their head.
Yeah.
And so recently the mayor had just launched his Shake Alert LA, which was actually proactive notification for all of Southern California using sensors to give us up to 6 seconds advance notice for earthquakes that are happening in the region. And that's just enough time for us to then start shutting down oxygen lines at hospitals, making sure that elevators stop, making sure that highly sensitive kind of operations that are happening in the city shut down so that there isn't any kind of greater damage. So that's probably one of the biggest kind of highlights that we're using technology for. And it's not only just creating that for technology's sake, obviously, but it's very impactful for the everyday Angeleno, right?
Absolutely.
For all of the points that I just mentioned.
Absolutely.
Well, since we're kind of going with time, I think I'll stop there and then just give some people a chance to talk to you.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure. So again, I'm Deep Labs, artificial intelligence company based in San Francisco. And then primarily what we focus in on is how we integrate sensor technology, buzzword bingo, IoT sensors, and effectively be able to extrapolate insights to do predictive analytics for and on behalf of the constituents of various cities, with the aim primarily being around anti-fraud fraud detection, identity verification, and ultimately being able to again create a better understanding of the individual consumers, such that government services can be hyper-personalized and tailored to those citizens.
Got it. And I know, Paula, in Medellin, you worked on a number of initiatives. Do you want to tell us a little bit about?
Yeah. So I worked at the Innovation Center of the city. So it's a government innovation center. The innovation hub, it's called Ruta NA. And we actually, we're right now here at the City Possible stand. We launched a city collaboration network because Medellin, from its past, we had the bad drug war, really bad economic crisis. So there had to be mechanisms to collaborate and to kind of become more resilient. And that's when Medellin said, okay, we need a center or a hub which starts kind of articulating the private sector, academy, government with each other to actually think together about solutions and think about in how we can, through collaboration, approach the most challenging, the most pressing challenges of the city. And I was there responsible for the Open Innovation Program. And what we did there mainly is that we said, yes, we have to collaborate between the three different institutions, but we also have to integrate more citizens into the public innovation processes. So we did a big citizen participation program where we had ears, we were bringing them into the comunas, because I was just in a with Argentinian delegation, and we talked about how important it is to actually, when we develop tech for people, we need to understand the realities. And very often in the Innovation Center, I also experienced it that we were creating public policy or certain tech solutions, but we have never been in the community and really working with the people there. So in Ruta-Enne, there's a really strong focus on that to become and to create a more citizen-centric public innovation process. And then there is also a very nice thing which I always promote is the exchange of solutions. So through a city collaboration program, we started to share the open data program, which was developed in the municipality. So in the metropolitan area, where approx 3.5 million inhabitants live, there are 10 municipalities. And then there was an idea about how can we start sharing a solution which is already working for us, which was the open data platform and the whole open data strategy with other cities. And that's when Medellin shared it with the metropolitan area. They implemented their open data platform and strategy, and then they brought it to the other municipalities. So it's all about like how can I foster collaboration, co-creation, and very often it's necessary to create those hubs, even if you already have those mechanisms in your city. But from my experience in that, and I'm not working there anymore, but from my experience, it's very powerful to have an institution or a team which generates those collaboration, co-creation processes.
Sure. That's extremely interesting. There's when we think of communities and people in general, we have to think about transportation, right? It's a key role or vehicle within every city. It doesn't matter the size, whether it's Los Angeles or Chicago. The idea of transportation has to play an intricate role for a number of reasons, whether it's mobility, micro-mobility, whether it's reducing pollution, getting people on public transportation more frequently, if it's reducing traffic. Sapan, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing, what MasterCard's doing in the transportation space to maybe help resolve some of the issues that we're seeing in our communities?
So what we're trying to do is think about from a customer's perspective, from a citizen's perspective, how do we make it easier for a resident of the city to go from point A to point B in a more seamless manner. And what I mean by that is if you look at a number of cities around the world, there are a number of issues, or they need to do something specific to be able to use public transportation. You need to go somewhere, get a ticket, or you need to go and get a smart card, or you need to go and top up your smart card. There are a number of these barriers that are sometimes presented to a resident to be able to use public transportation. So one of the things we are trying to do is how do you enable people to use stuff that they already have, be it cards that they carry in their wallets, or smartphones that they carry in the pockets, to use that to get in and out of public transportation. It's a better customer experience. It's a more efficient mechanism for cities because they can essentially outsource a lot of the costs associated managing their own payments ecosystem to the broader payment networks. And then so that is one area where we are working with cities on. The other area is just to think about, if you look at a city, apart from public transportation, there are various other modes. Think about taxis and bikes and e-scooters and Ubers and Lyfts. All of these have their own payment schedules. They have their own apps. They have their own timetables. How do you think about if I need to use the best of what's available in the city, if I need to harmonize that and make it easier for people to go from A to B using multiple modes of transportation, if that's the most convenient way to get to a place, then how do I do that in a more seamless manner so that I don't need to figure out how do I use train, how do I get a card for the train, and then how do I download an app to use this, then how do I get a separate app for using the scooters, how do you harmonize all of that using one single form factor?
So consolidating, building higher efficiency to get around, to get people from one place to another the fastest and most convenient way possible. With that, we hear a lot the idea of building a smart city, but it's only smart if it actually serves everyone, right? We have to be able to think about everyone in that city. I know that, and I'm going to direct this question to Deputy Mayor. In LA, you really get out to ensure that everybody has a place that they can grow and become vibrant. You're doing a lot to take on homelessness. in Los Angeles. It's at a priority for yourself, for the mayor. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of the tactical approach you're taking to really start to help support and resolve not only the symptoms but homelessness in general?
Yeah, and I'd say that, you know, without going too deep into homeless policy, which is fairly extensive, I think I'll kind of summarize it in saying a few different things. In that, you know, there was, I think early on in the administration, actually a LA Times kind of indictment of the city of Los Angeles saying our streets were not clean, dirty. And you could look it up, it's online, right? So, but the whole point of what I'm saying was there were all the work that our entire workforce was doing towards trying to make sure that and I'll get to homelessness in a second, I just wanted to preface it, all of our streets were clean. And we were looking at kind of like different metrics. We actually had to build out a whole new system so that we would change from being very responsive, complaint-driven, where some of the richest areas of our cities would get the most amount of service, and some of the poorer areas would get the least amount, right? And so we had then like kind of wholesale changed how we operate there so that there was greater equity in how we would deliver our services. The city of Los Angeles has been looking at more and more at the data that it has, both at the city and county level, using larger kind of data sets and working with our universities and other partners to make sure that we're actually targeting more of the resources that we need to the places that need it. In addition to then trying to, you know, get upstream, right? We're pulling everyone out of the river. Well, if they're falling in it, you know, a mile or two or, you know, 2.5 kilometers up the stream, then you're going to have an ongoing problem. And in that, the other strategy has been really trying to make sure that there's greater kind of opportunities created in many different geographical and kind of segments of Los Angeles society. So we've focused on, you know, incubators for technology and clean technology in mobility, urban mobility. The mayor just recently launched his urban mobility lab just last week to try and solve, you know, traffic in Los Angeles, which is great, while trying to create new and different jobs. So it's kind of like those two kind of aspects of how do we actually focus the resources that we have that we're using, and then how do we try and pull everyone out of the river in the highest way that we can.
No, I think it's fascinating in the approach because everyone's dealing with it, right? And we have to make sure that if we're going to build a city, that it's a city that everyone lives in. Scott, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in the sort of city space in general to really create change and impact?
Sure, happy to. So for us, it's sort of step one is fundamentally understanding the different touch points that the citizens have in their daily life, right? And so we tend to call it, or think in terms of personas. So, you know, Scott Eddington sitting in Barcelona, slightly jet lagged at this point, is a little different than the Scott Eddington sitting in his home city of San Francisco. And, you know, at a glance, you can probably see that, but up until now, most systems, most platforms that cities have used sort of treat the citizen as sort of a single layer, or basically the same person as they go through their day and their life, right? And as they travel sort of through space and time. And so a large part of what we've done since our inception has really been focused on, again, understanding the touch points that the citizens happen to have, understand their personas, and then figure out ways to effectively enrich the capabilities of the various cities' programs with a better understanding of exactly who the constituents are at any moment in time.
Sure.
Sort of almost like a phase one approach.
Sure.
And then ultimately the goal is to obviously generate a better understanding, basically a multi-layer understanding of the various citizens, such that they can then be served up with those hyper-personalized experiences. Because let's be honest, everyone is not the same in terms of what their needs are and what services they might happen to need as they go through, again, their day-to-day life.
Sure. And we're recognizing that in order to build a city for everybody, the infrastructure around us is changing, right? We're noticing that we're seeing more connected and intelligent-based infrastructure. We're recognizing that in every city, in every community, the infrastructure around us should engage us, should tell us something, should be more reactive or proactive to us as people. if I'm walking down the street and I hear a gunshot, that light should get brighter. It should dispatch police. The bus should stop moving in that direction. We should be notified, and that data should be collected so that way we know where to put police more frequently. That would be the ideal situation. And we see cities like Los Angeles and Chicago and New York and in Medellin and other places where they're starting to think that way, and we're starting to see infrastructure grow. Yeah, Raquel, can you tell us a little bit about? Can you tell us a little bit about? I don't know which one's working, but okay. So give me one more microphone. Yeah. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what Bright Cities is doing to kind of help build that type of idea. You know, where infrastructure is connected around people and making it better for them to live in that city. Okay. Okay.
So only one. Okay, great. So thank you. It's very interesting when you say that smart city is smart when it includes everyone. We say about that in Brazil when it includes all cities. So that's the importance of the case of Juazeiro do Norte that we are here. It's a medium city in Brazil that's being very innovative, using technology and to show that even with a restricted budget, even being a small city, you can be innovative. So they are using, for example, the MasterCard, they are using the project to comply all the transportation to use on one card as a citizen's card. So they can use on the transportation, they can use on the health system, and they can use to pay taxes. What is very helpful for the inclusion of people that today they cannot divine to pay the payment for the taxes, and with the card they are going to be able to do that. So that's something that's very important for the citizens, so they are able to pay in a different way. It's helpful for the city because most of people are not paying today because they cannot have this possibility. So that's something that's very innovative for the cities. So it's very important for us to always go through using the technology to get a good results in terms of how it's going to be improve the day-to-day of the citizens. So that's one, I think, good example that this small city that's having so many ideas and implementing, even having the restricted budgets, but using technology to do that. So.
Smart infrastructure helping communities in Medellin for you?
Smart infrastructure. I think the biggest challenge when we talk about tech is that a lot of people don't know how to what it actually is. Like when we implemented the data strategy in Medellin, a lot of people don't even know how to read certain things. You know, like it's always like this harmonized strategies which we imagine, and we say, okay, we're going to implement the platform, and then people can like log in and like download the data, but what are they going to do with it, right? And very often the problem is that we don't make it tangible enough for the people. So in Medellin we have like big favelas, 70% are low and mid-income people who are very, very scared about what is coming, right? So right now in Medellin, I don't know if some of you know, but the World Economic Forum created a center, the Fourth Industrial Revolution Center in Medellin. There are 12 in the world. And we're thinking about public policy in Ruta N, about how are we going to be approaching, like how are we going to be planning what is coming with the Fourth Industrial Revolution and how we're going to react to it. And I think one of the biggest challenge here, if we talk about infrastructure and so on, is how do I make it understandable for the people what is happening in this big innovation center when we talk about Fourth Industrial Revolution, and how am I going to be involved and how I'm not going to like lose my job in a way. So it's very much about like giving feedback and integrate them so they actually are part of the solution. And with the data strategies, for example, we did data shows in the different communities to kind of like make them understand what is the value, the added value of data. For example, if I use a sensor or the watches, the smart watches, how I can like measure my health and how can I kind of react to it. So it's like with very practical examples, bringing the value of data to the citizens and make them understand what it is and how they can use it and benefit from it. So.
So we noticed the growth in population in cities is growing at this rapid pace. We got to take our time to really build technology that works for people. I'm going to point to Deputy Mayor and ask, I'm going to you next. what's one of your top priorities right now that's really focused on impacting people in general? Like, what out of everything you're dealing with, where's that priority issue topic that you're really focused on in LA to really create change within the city directly? You might need this one.
Yeah. So I was actually going to be talking about this a little bit at the plenary session, but I actually wanted to say that probably identity and knowing who the person is and how you can craft and curate a message, a service towards them is one of the things as a government entity, right? We're really big systems of records, passports, driver's license, all these things. And then when you translate that into the digital realm, that means a whole nother thing. And it's surprising. There's a difference in how much the government is trusted versus, let's say, Facebook or any of the larger kind of institutions. We have to kind of build on that. So in order to really kind of unlock some of that digital transformation, I think it's going to be important for us in the government sector to really understand how all of that plays without infringing on anyone's rights. That's going to be a fundamental kind of building block to then applying all types of AI using different technologies like blockchain, right, on this aspect. So I think there's the very basic thing of making sure that there's trust between all these entities that matter.
Interesting. Before we wrap up, I'd like to see if we can take some questions from the audience. For anybody on the panel, are there any questions you'd like to ask, what maybe some of these cities are doing, or any questions based on the topics that we just discussed? I know there's one in here somewhere. All right, give me one.
Hello. I spend a lot of my time thinking about climate and weather and seismic events and resilience to these. And we talked about housing a little bit, but I was wondering with LA and even Medellin, how do you think of building better housing, affordable housing, but also making sure that we don't build in areas that are prone to wildfires, and what data and what do you use to kind of make these kind of zoning decisions, but also other kind of governance decisions?
Okay. There's many different ways to answer that. I think for housing specifically, innovation is actually quite underutilized at the moment. It's a great opportunity for us. It's part of the reason why we've actually sanctioned some of the bond monies that Los Angeles has taxed itself, sorry, just to give context, Los Angeles taxed itself to build more permanent supportive housing for its homeless population. And pardon me, that's jet lag talking now. And about $100 million of that has been set aside to try and unlock new and innovative ways to create more housing. I think that's using new technologies, kind of looking at our building regulations will actually make it so that we'll have more affordable housing in the long term. In terms of policy and all the data, we constantly look at that in terms of urban planning, right? So all of that data is kind of within our aspects. I think it's going to translate into different levels of risk and insurance that we'll have to play in. So there's going to be a cost, right, to living where you're at or operating where you're at. And it's more of trying to get to that bottom line. Okay, so what level of risk is okay for that, right? Because I'm pretty sure even though there's earthquakes in Los Angeles, people still want to live there. So there's that level.
Makes sense. Any other questions before we wrap up? Nope. Okay. So I'd like to say thank you to the panelists for attending. Thank you to MasterCard, City Possible, and thank you to Smart City Expo World Congress. Thank you.